which is front. This.
Changes this point.
And how many minutes do you have?
15. And good morning, everyone. And my name is Emmanuel. I'm a lecturer in construction management at Solent University in the UK. I'm presenting this paper with my co-author, Professor Christine Pasquet, who is seated here, along my other authors who are not here. And the study we are presenting this morning is a study that examines the impact of procurement method on last planner implementation in the UK, and it's actually a case study. And before I start, we've been looking at this diagram in various sessions at this conference. I will not be explaining the key step of the last planner system, but what I want us to know is actually the increasing use of last planner system on construction projects. And to actually reinforce this, I did a little research at this conference, and what the goal of the research was actually to identify any of the track where the term last planner session was not mentioned. And I tried to gather evidence across the various tracks, and what I found that there was no session that the term last planner system was not mentioned. And you may be surprised if you are new to link construction, why every presenter mentioning the term last planner system. It actually took me back to a paper that was presented in IGLC2018 in 2013, and a paper by Dan and Thais, and their conclusion was that last planner system is the gateway to lean behavior. So you shouldn't be surprised that you are hearing the term last planner system. And studies have shown that externally, the last planner system is the most implemented lean construction technique across the industry. A McGray report in 2013 reported that. We also did a study in 2015 that actually looked at the implementation of last planner system across the globe. And that was actually based on publication at IGLC.net between 1993 to 2014. And what to find out was the last planner system have been implemented across the entire continent of the world, except Antarctica. And the key limitation of this study was actually based on the paper that was available at IGLC.net. We couldn't actually include paper that was published in mainstream journals. But what this tells us is that the implementation of the last planner system is growing in terms of managing project production. And having established the fact that the use of last planner system is increasing, we also look at literature that for every successful project, the method in which the project is procured is essential. And when I'm talking about procurement in this context, I'm not just referring to procurement of materials, but I'm referring to the entire methodology that was actually used in delivering the project. And also, studies have suggested that procurement should actually be the starting point of integrating lean techniques into the construction industry. Specifically, we also find out that even with this suggestion, studies have revealed that factors such as contextual factors, and these contextual factors have been identified as procurement method, construction method, and also culture have influence on the implementation of last planner system. But from the literature review, we understand that no study have actually documented the impact of procurement method on last planner implementation. And that is actually the gap this study intends to fill. Now, what is the research question we attempt to answer in this paper was actually what is the influence of procurement method on last planner implementation. Now, for us to achieve this, we felt it's important for us to go to the field, the experiment, for us to actually have empirical data. So we decided to adopt a case study research design, which you can see. We selected 3 case study projects. This project, they were purposely selected. We identified key criteria for selecting this project. Now, one of the criteria was, one, the project must be managed by production plan and control principle, specifically the last planner system. Also, the project must be ongoing and within a measurable time for us to observe how this process play out on the project. And then finally, the third criteria that the project should also have using the similar procurement method. While we could not achieve the desired outcome in this regard, we're able to identify two of the projects use a design and build procurement method, while one of the projects use a traditional build procurement method. On each of the projects, this is the first case project. Now, the first case study project is the highway and infrastructure project, actually looking at expanding an existing road to improve the traffic. Now, the second case study is also a highway and infrastructure project. It's actually an upgrade to an existing road to become a smart motorway to improve the traffic. And the third project is a school building project, which is a house building project. And the reason for selecting this project, for the first one, it used design and build procurement method, which I'll be calling CSP01, the part of the presentation. As for the CSP2, it uses traditional design, build, and the third one was design and build. As you can see, they all have a measurable duration to actually enable us to capture the evidence we are looking for to answer the research question proposed earlier. It's worth mentioning that on each of the projects, the last planner system was internally facilitated by an internal person within the organization. On each of the projects, we identified 3 evidence. The first evidence was actually having observation, and myself, I was involved in the look ahead and make ready planning meeting. The 3 projects were running concurrently, but the days for their make ready and planning meeting on different days. I have the opportunity to be in their planning session as an observer, although this was not made known to the members of the stakeholders in the planning meeting. I observed, identified the nature of conversation that goes around among the teams on the project. And in addition to that, I reviewed the document that actually had the output from their planning meeting, the PPC, the contract agreement, because the focus of this very particular study was actually to look at the impact of the procurement. And then I went further to interview the top management team, the middle managers, and also the subcontractors that were on the project. And we came up with some key findings from the observation in my weekly, my participation in the look ahead planning meeting. One of the key observations on CSP 02, which is actually the traditional procurement method, was used, that the members of there are a set of people, the nominated subcontractors and the design team were not involved in the look ahead and the look ahead planning meeting. And this was basically due to the fact that the use of last planner system on the project was not part of their contract. And so this actually have implication on design decision. Now, during the look ahead planning meeting, because the designers are not there, any decision that have to do with design have to actually, no decision could be made because the facilitator have to have an ad hoc meeting after the make ready planning meeting for them to resolve that. But this was not observed on CSP 02 and 01, where design and build and contract procurement method was used. Also, it was observed that the last planner contract was last planner system was not included in the contract clause for CSP 02. Now, this was actually at the initial part of the implementation, and then we discovered that the client has to intervene at a particular point, And because he persuaded the designers and the nominated subcontractors to actually have ad hoc meeting with the other stakeholders on the project. And to also overcome this, the traditional mindset exhibited by the design team, the facilitator developed a strategy, and during the look-ahead planning, they have to factor in the duration for request for information. Usually when you send information, request maybe a detailing decision or information for a particular section of the drawing to the design team. Now you need 8 days for you to have feedback. So in making in the make ready process, they have to incorporate this into the make ready plan. And as we all know that having this bad news early, though it's not good, it has overall impact in real-time decision making. But when they factor this into the make ready process, now the impact was reduced in the implementation process. Also, on all the projects, both the traditional procurement method, the subcontractors were into framework agreement, and this actually was key in actually supporting the implementation of last planner system on the project. Now, I conducted some of the interview, and what I observed, the common theme that came out of some of the interview, that there was expression of traditional mindset from the nominated subcontractors and the designer. Nominated subcontractors are contractors employed by the client and to work on the project. These are some of the comments from the interviewers. See, some of the designers are based on site, but they will never come to exchange because they were not engaged by the client. And so this is actually was a problem in the traditional procurement method. And this is another comment from the construction manager. So there are some subcontractors directly employed by the client who we cannot pay, but we manage them. So this was a great constraint on the implementation on this project. But the good part of it is that because of the collaborative strategies and the long-term relationship that some of the subcontractors have had over time, it sustained the implementation. Here are some of the comments. So each subcontractor on this project have worked together previous, thus we understand each other and we're able to work better. This is a construction manager on CSP2 that actually used the traditional procurement method. And this is a comment. So we have worked with some of the subcontractors in our progress using SPS. It helps. And so we, having looked at this, the summary of the finding that the use of collaborative procurement strategies such as framework agreement actually support the implementation of last man. Could it be on traditional procurement or design and build? The study also observed that the client commitment to the process actually reduced the impact of the traditional mindset in the implementation. However, we observed that in terms of real-time decision making, that is low in design, bid, and build compared to that of design and build. So what is our conclusion from the study? The study concludes that there is no single procurement method that is actually the gateway to last mile implementation. So irrespective of the procurement method you've adopted, the need for mindset change actually is essential. Also, we also recommend that procurement approach on which HPS is implemented should not be static, but should be agile to accommodate other collaborative practices. And they will further suggest there is a need to incorporate the last planner system as part of the contract for the nominated subcontractors and the members of the design team. And then this study is actually based on 3 case studies and just 2 procurement methods. And for us to understand more and have a global perspective, we are also recommending that a similar study using more procurement method and looking under context with more case study could actually give us more understanding to understand the concept in last planner implementation. Thank you.